Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Earlier tonight, we were having tea. In the questions and answers, one of the questions that was brought up was kind of dealing with a kind of doubt that might arise, knowing sometimes how ambitious we should be as opposed to when we should be patient. And as we're meditating tonight, this question kind of came back up. It's a strange predicament we have here in this kind of human life. But sometimes I like to tell myself, no one gets out alive. We seem to always find ourselves stuck in between things in a way. There's this kind of almost cone-like saying that Ajahn Sudanto used to press people with sometimes. He used to say, if you can't go forward and you can't go back and you can't stand still, where do you go? And I've heard endless attempts to sort of interpret it. But I think it speaks more to just that sort of predicament of human life. Like there really is no safe place. Cognitively, emotionally, the human realm is, there's no place to hide. You can't just stand still. Life's always poking and provoking us 1,000 times a day, really, from the very first moments of clear consciousness when you wake up, all the way till you go to bed, and often sometimes even threaded through your sleep and your dreams. There seems to be these endless provocations to do something or to try to delineate some sort of choice between two extremes. And emotionally, the way that kind of manifests is sense of unsatisfactoriness. I mean, you can try to be patient, you can try to just leave things there, but can you really? In my own contemplations, I oftentimes try to come up with and play with sort of different words to try to unpack what it is that the Buddha is on about when he talks about this phenomenon of dukkha and freedom from dukkha. So nibbana, or enlightenment, the kind of the ultimate goal of a spiritual life is to be free of something that the Buddha calls dukkha. And I like thinking of it as kind of that sense of being stuck or being pushed upon, not being free, really. We're not really just free to stand still, are we? Like, can you just be? You can't, in a way. And one of the other words that I like to contemplate in connection with maybe what the Buddha is on about as he talks about dukkha is it's this sense of incompleteness, with desire still very much operating and the mind not really hip to what it's doing to us and able to orient ourselves and operate in a different way, to bring those habits of thirsting and desire to resolve. Life feels very incomplete. It's not just that you're unsatisfied, although you are. Life doesn't feel complete. Like it always kind of feels like something's sort of missing. And I like that contemplation because, if we talk about it as being free or being happy or something like this, I think sometimes it can be very confused. I mean, here we are in America, we're free. But is your life complete? Are you free from all these kind of pressures and compulsions? Or how, really how much control do you even have over your mind or your emotional life? On the drive over here tonight, from Matthew's house, I was kind of sitting in the front seat with my eyes closed the whole time, just kind of trying to sort of meditate. And I had my window down a little bit, and we were driving across town, and it was pleasant, but I wasn't free. Like, part of my mind kept trying to sort of map where we are, and I kept thinking, like, you don't even know Portland that well. Why do you even try? It's like, so I'm sitting there and I'm trying to sort of focus on my breath and just kind of drop everything and meditate for a few minutes while Matthew navigates crosstown traffic. There's no need for me to imagine what road we're on or what intersection we just came to or who these people are that are talking on the corner about somebody. And it was kind of interesting. I kept sort of like just exploring that a little bit and trying to free myself. Like, why do I need to care about this? Why do I need to even conceive of Portland as this kind of space that my body's kind of moving through right now? It was an interesting little meditation with little moments of freeing myself, but so easily the mind just kind of continues to be sort of caught, even in something as sort of trivial as that. So we're not free, and there's a whole lot of discontent that threads itself sort of through our lives, regardless of the blessings that we have, and the pleasantries that might be there sort of in our lives. And in some sense, there's no clear and easy answer. There's no sort of like one way or one thing that's sort of missing. in a sense. I was talking about this the other night out at our meditation yoga samadhi, and sort of telling people, sort of, in some ways, it's so different than many other things in our life, like things in the material realm, or especially maybe in science or something, you can describe all kinds of processes in ways that are sort of precise. And in the Buddhist teaching, he describes the mind in all kinds of various ways, and there's various models of mind, there's various similes and analogies and signposts, and an amazing kind of wealth of information and encouragement of how to engage with this process of freeing ourselves and ending this habit of dukkha and discontent. But in the details, really, it's not like these other sort of realms of life where you can't specify it in detail, and in some sense there's a huge amount of ambiguity, or say creativity, that it takes in engaging with our life in a way that is very clear-minded and very direct. You need to know yourself, in a sense. And ultimately, it's kind of like this lifelong process of learning and knowing yourself and writing your own owner's or operator's manual for how to get free. And should you successfully sort of do so, you probably won't even be able to just pass it on to the next person for them to use, because we all face a very unique challenge in a certain sense. In the broad outlines, yeah, things are very similar, and that's why those models and the teachings hold true throughout sort of time. But in the detail in particular, suffering is something that we're doing, and we have to wake up to how it is that we do it, and how it is that we aren't free, how it is we keep ourselves trapped. And it's not like one thing. It's not like a treasure hunt, or it's not like kind of breaking the code or something. It's maybe better thought of as a muscle or a set of skills that eventually we develop, so that with ever increasing levels of skill and goodness, we know how to sort of like respond and navigate our way through life. And I think one of the things that makes the whole endeavor of spiritual practice difficult is we want to reduce it down to kind of one thing. We always feel like there's just one thing kind of missing. And maybe it's your meditation. Maybe you feel like if you could just get it, or just get whatever it is, like, some particular mastery over the ability to get the nattering mind to shut up, or some sense of bliss, or some kind of clear insight that somehow is just going to magically solve all your problems. One thing, it's kind of like the get-rich-quick kind of mentality, or the gambler's mentality. There's still a lot of people out there who kind of blundering their way through life, but still playing the lottery. Just hoping. And maybe that'll do it. And one of the teachings that the Buddha offers that I really like that it speaks to this, and I remember kind of coming across it when I was a young monk, and it really helped me enormously kind of weaken, I guess, or even break that sort of habit of longing for and looking for the right thing. You know, you go and you meet this inspiring teacher or monk, and you know, he's, please tell me, what am I doing wrong? What's the most important practice? How much jhana does somebody need? Or whatever. There's all kinds of questions and concerns you can come up with, which is an extension of just that thing of looking for the missing piece. But in the middle length sayings, the second sutta, which Bhikkhu Bodhi translates all the taints, the Buddha talks about enlightenment being achieved not by finding sort of one sort of missing thing, but he describes sort of a variety of ways that the taints are removed from the mind, enabling the experience of freedom. So that's where the taints, it's just one of the many terms that the Buddha is using to talk about the supports for the experience of dukkha, or the kilesa, or the defilements, as it's sometimes translated. And I think I've talked about this sutta here before. It's just something that comes up in my mind from time to time, especially because it helps to convey that sort of sense of breadth, but also like in the sutta he talks about 7 different ways that the mind is freed, and some of them are actually quite mundane, which is, I think, what I like it so much. Because we can easily sort of imagine that, okay, the missing piece really is a certain meditative experience. And I say early in my life when I was training myself to meditate, almost every time I sat down there was a little bit of a hope and a kind of desire that maybe this would be the time. Maybe I'll have some sort of magical experience that'll solve my problems. Or you can extend it out to thinking that it's getting mastery over a certain kind of particular things. But in this teaching, the Buddha really kind of expands it out to 7 different ways. And one is through seeing. He starts off the sort of talking about part of the reason why we're not free, and part of the reason why the mind is afflicted with these sort of taints, is that we don't really know what it is worth to sort of attending to, and we give our attention to things that aren't really kind of going to support that process, aren't worthy of our attention, and then the very things that will support that we don't give our attention to. So this is the Buddha's teaching on sort of wise attention. Yoniso manasikara, sort of like attending sort of wisely. And the very first habit or area or something that's making a contribution to this process of freedom is really one of wisdom, and it's one of seeing, where we realize that the attention that we kind of give to all the habits of selfing and conceiving of self and thinking about self are really not helping. They're really unwise. They're really a foolish kind of waste of time. And one of these days I should memorize it, because the list is kind of humorous and sing-song. It's sort of like, was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? Am I in the present? What am I in the present? And it just goes on and on. This exhaustive sort of list of all the kinds of ways that we can kind of conceive of ourselves. And on a first read, you kind of think, well, I don't really do that. Well, maybe that one, but I don't really do it. But if you pick it up and read it and contemplate it. It's frightening. Like when you really open yourself up to it and kind of slowly kind of savor it and pick your way through it, it's like, oh my God. That's the very contents of almost every waking thought I've ever had. It's even the stuff that comes up in the middle of my meditation. But we could sum it all up as selfing, or sum it all up as all the various habits and ways that we kind of conceive of self. And it comes under sort of this area of sort of seeing, which is really wisdom. So with wisdom, we learn that, that is a waste of time. And by perpetuating those habits or taking those questions seriously, we're really just contributing to the problem or supporting being stuck and everything that comes with it. So instead, wisely reflecting, one looks to the Four Noble Truths. And so you start to sort of look at the very truth of dukkha, the source of dukkha, the cessation, the path. So instead of... in the Four Noble Truths, this is one of the things I really appreciate about Lumpur Sumedho's teaching. It's really like, you can think of it as like a perspective or a paradigm for viewing your experience. And we often don't. I mean, even practicing Buddhists, I mean, we kind of just feel like dukkha is that thing that's happening to us that I someday hope to be kind of free from. And there's my dukkha and there's your dukkha. But if you think about the Four Noble Truths as a way to engage your experience of life in a framework for seeing and understanding your life, it's tremendously useful and tremendously liberating. So just, something's going on and you notice you're not happy, you notice you're discontent, you notice you're stuck or something. To see that sort of in that, with those habits of selfing or something, is like you can feel hopeless, or you can feel like a failure, or you can be full of all kinds of self-doubt. So, well, who am I fooling? Coming to Portland Friends of the Dhamma every Friday night and meditating. This is not for me. Look at my mind. It's jumping all over the place. I've been trying this for a couple of years now. Who am I fooling? But seen maybe through the lens of the Four Noble Truths, you can just see the wandering mind is suffering. Oh, this is dukkha. Not even my dukkha. Oh, look at me, I'm sitting here suffering in the middle of meditation because my mind's wandering. I feel not free. I feel discontent. It's just dukkha. It's dukkha that arises, dukkha that ceases. It's a noble truth. And just to be able to sort of see it for what it is. I mean, right away that opens up a way of seeing it in a way that is transpersonal or not personal. It's just something that arises based on various causes and conditions. And looking into those conditions doesn't necessarily need to arouse a whole strong sense of self, which in itself will just keep you trapped. So that of the seven, I think that one is kind of one of the most refined for contemplation, and then it moves right from seeing to something a little more simple, which is restraint, and in particular the restraint of the six senses. So one of the habits of how we understand and how we kind of engage in making sense of our experience, then the second restraint is really how we use the sense apparatus in the world. What is it that we give our attention to? What objects of sight, sound, smell, touch, taste? And permeating throughout the Buddhist teaching is this sense that we need to learn that everything isn't necessarily worth your attention. You want to be free. You actually do have to exercise some sort of judgment and restraint of how you use your senses and how you engage in the sense world. There's lots of sights, there's lots of ideas, there's lots of things that are not worthy of you're not strong enough in some sense. It's like there's certain ideas, there's certain people, there's certain sights that will overwhelm your mind. And then, that you're going to create negative karma by engaging with. And the Buddha's advice is you should learn to sort of recognize what it is that's worthy of your attention, and then live in a way where you're empowered to sort of know that it's important to be a good steward and be responsible with your senses. And so if you know, like, looking at something or thinking about something is going to make you angry, then don't look at it. Don't think about it. And it sounds kind of controlling, or it sounds kind of simple, but that is part of the habits that support the whole sort of process of awakening, is just being a bit more kind of responsible. I've had some teachers that say, junk in, junk out. Be careful what you let in. And I think culturally, that's a difficult one for us. I mean, I always felt this kind of emotional resistance to that, because it's certainly not a common way to live your life in this day and this age. I mean, culturally, we kind of feel like we should be super liberal and equanimous and just take everything in and not be overly affected by it. But the fact of the matter is we are overly affected by it. And there's a time and place to be very kind of careful and to protect yourself. And and then over time, like, you're expanding your wisdom, and you're expanding all the other sort of strengths of the heart. That changes. But this teaching, like, one thing is important about it is, like, part of what makes up the experience of enlightenment is changing the way you engage in the sense realm. That's a really important point. And then the next element is called using, and this is a teaching he gives to the monks. So it speaks kind of very much to one of the elements of right livelihood for a monk, and it's sort of using the four requisites for utilitarian purposes, essentially, or using them righteously. So monks are encouraged to use their clothes just for sake of modesty and for protecting themselves from the sun and bugs and the elements. To use food just to nourish the body and give enough energy to make it through the day and to be able to practice without undue pain of hunger, and to maintain a modicum of health. To use lodgings to, again, protect yourself from the elements, but also to have a sense of seclusion, so you can not be sort of pulled out into mapping Portland and all the sounds of Portland. So you can focus on your practice. So it's a fairly sort of straightforward and simple one. It's just, again, it's kind of how you engage with the sense realm but it also has this dimension of right livelihood, especially for a monk. And it's like, well, not using all the stuff of your life out of a sense of ego or to further your habits of sensual gratification, or to be overly kind of caught up in them, or for them to be a basis for pride or greed or jealousy or something like that. It's just a very like a utilitarian approach to the basic requisites of life. And the next element is enduring, which is just essentially tolerance, patience with everything that is painful and disagreeable in a human life. This is another one that I like, is so kind of mundane. It's like, painful feelings, painful words, disagreeable people, sickness. You could say everything that is naturally unpleasant and very much part of a human life that we could react to with sort of desire or aversion or some sort of form of delusion. You learn to endure it, learn to be someone who just doesn't make too much out of it. We've seen, restraint, using, enduring. The next one's quite humorous. It's avoiding, and most of the description in the sutta is kind of a list of dangerous animals and dangerous places. So you avoid like a wild elephant. You avoid a cliff, a chasm, a cesspool. I think unsuitable resorts is in there. I think there's a whole, not like resorts, but not like a vacation destination. Buddha's not saying stay away from bad motels. Unsuitable places. So, and this is what I really like. It's like, okay, part of enlightenment is just like staying out of the wrong places. I don't need to find the most dangerous part of Chicago to go sort of test my equanimity and compassion. I don't need to put myself in dangerous situations to sort of develop a fearlessness. And we can easily sort of think that. We can think that, and I meet people all the time who feel like, yeah, my life's too easy. I really need to put myself in a difficult situation or something to really push myself to kind of learn and grow. And it's like, no, you don't. I mean, if you find yourself in a difficult position, which is all too easy in life, learn and grow as much as you can from it, but don't seek these things out, and especially things that are unsupportive and dangerous. So, and the unsuitable resorts, again, he's talking to monks, and there's all kinds of unsuitable places. So, I shouldn't be in the pub. It's probably not good for me to sort of hang around the red light district. Even though my alms bowl's empty, I should probably find other places in town to walk about. And in your own life, you can extend that to all kinds of things. Like, where is it? It's just not going to be profitable or supportive of your endeavor to sort of awaken. It might be the next family reunion you have scheduled. Depending on how your family relations are. It might be your workplace. So just by avoiding, and I think most people maybe are kind of surprised. Like, avoiding is part of the enlightenment experience? Yes. It's not just bright lights and great meditation and blazing insights. Some of it is just very kind of practical things. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was meditating and comparing this a little bit to even sort of elements of the Eightfold Path. And there's lots of overlap in different ways that you can think about it. And the other way I oftentimes think about the path is there's another breakdown that's a little more, I guess, shorter or mundane than the Eightfold Path, which is you could talk about the path of Buddhist practice as being generosity, virtue, mental cultivation, and then wisdom. That's a fairly short-fold way of talking about it. And if you contemplate it sort of clearly, by generating and developing sort of generosity, you're abandoning dukkha. You're eliminating dukkha by the development of that habit and the ceasing of miserliness or stinginess or selfishness. Like right there, you're just cutting off all kinds of moments of unsatisfactoriness and dukkha and stuff that keeps you sort of trapped and unfree. And the same is true of virtue. It's like by living a virtuous life and abiding by kind of wise sort of limits, there's just an enormous amount of dukkha that is eliminated. But we oftentimes don't think of it that way, and more typically these things are talked about as kind of like foundations, like the supports for having a really good meditation life. But really, if you think about it deeply and clearly, I mean, in and of themselves, they're eliminating all kinds of dukkha in your life. The more you take those on and the more you kind of live from those sort of places. And I think this delineation that we find in the Sabbasava Sutta has also got some of those kind of same characteristics to it. So let's see, the last ones are, avoiding was the last. Removing. So there's two left, removing and developing. So removing kind of speaks directly to the taints, and it's, I'd say, most strongly kind of connected with the element of the path known as right effort. So it's like when you recognize and are under the grips of the taint of sensuality, the taint of becoming, taint of ill will, then you remove that from your experience. So we don't just kind of tolerate these things. And part of what helps kind of fuel us on the path is the willingness that when we notice that we're under the grips of something that is an afflictive emotion and diametrically opposed to our desire to be free, we do what we can to bring it to resolution, to remove it from our mind, to remove it from our experience. Maybe not forever, but just now. So like you notice yourself getting angry, you make steps and you adjust what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're saying, how you feel about it in some way that as quickly as possible sort of brings it to resolution. Don't just wait for it to fade. That lackadaisical approach is not really supportive of freedom and supportive of the path. When you find yourself afflicted with becoming, like this whole realm of wanting to be like this or not like that, or wanting to have your life like this or that or something, it's a powerfully deluded state of mind. thinking that happiness is somewhere else, or thinking that happiness is you being differently than you are, having something you don't have, whether it's a skill or... And you can even do this with enlightenment. It's like, be full of becoming for enlightenment. And feel very trapped, and very unfree, and very discontent. So, when you find the mind kind of moving in this way, you remove it. And the other taint isn't ill will, but it's ignorance. So that also is to be removed. And then finally is the development of the 7 factors of awakening. So the habits of mindfulness, investigation of Dhammas, energy, joy, tranquility, samadhi, concentration, and equanimity. And that speaks very directly to that whole realm of cultivation. So there's not just one thing missing, there's 7. There are seven ways we can think about it, really. Or 7 areas that we could attend to. And there's all kinds of other ways that you can slice it and dice it. Really it's just dukkha and the ending of dukkha that we're after. But the thing I like about the sutta is it really helps unpack and in some way make it concrete and real and broad. It's not just about one thing. It's about wisdom. It's about how you live. It's about how you use the senses. It's about what you engage in, what you don't engage in. It's about what you do when you find yourself in the grip of something that you know to be inimical to the process of awakening. And applying yourself to developing the factors of awakening. So offer that for your contemplation tonight.